Hey guys, oh, it's a hot one today, about 90 degrees out here. I am in Wilmington, North Carolina, and I am at the Green Lawn Memorial Park Cemetery. There's about 17,000 documented grave sites out here on Find a Grave. It's perpetual care. It's very well maintained, and a lot of monuments, which I'll show you in the video. But this is the final resting place of a young mother named Elisha Tucker, and she was tragically killed. She was a victim of a serial killer named James Bradley, and I'm going to tell you the story. Okay, so in order to tell you what happened to Elisha Marie Tucker, I have to first tell you about another lady, and her name was Shannon Rippy Van Newkirk. Now, Shannon Rippy Van Newkirk lived in Wilmington, and it was April the 6th, 2014, and she was supposed to attend a birthday lunch for her 54th birthday, and she was going to go to lunch with her mother and her aunt. So this would be a happy, joyous time. And they were going to pick her up, and they were going to do this. But Shannon was nowhere to be found. She was gone. She didn't go to her birthday lunch. She didn't show up. They couldn't reach her. They made multiple phone calls to her, and they just couldn't get up with her. They ended up leaving her birthday presents by her door. They went back later, and they were all still right where they had left them. She hadn't came home. Something was wrong. So they filed a missing persons report, and the police began to investigate. Now, Shannon worked at a place called Mott's Landscaping in Wilmington, and one of the co-workers that she had there was a man named James Opelton Bradley. Now, he had romantic interest in Shannon, and she had turned down his advances. And they started questioning him, and they asked him, do you know anything about Shannon? Do you know where she could be? And he denied any involvement or anything. And eventually, he was like, well, yeah, she was in my truck, and we had an argument, and she jumped out and ran off, and that's the last I'd seen her, last I knew anything. Now, they weren't able to locate her cell phone, the police weren't, but they could look at her phone records. And James Opelton Bradley and Shannon had exchanged 17 phone calls from April 1st to April 5th. But the day that she disappeared, communications had ceased. So that was a flag. But what was a really big flag for James Opelton Bradley was the fact that he was already a convicted murderer. Back in 1988, he had a stepdaughter. Her name was Ivy Gibson. She was 8 years old. And these are per his statements. He was homesick. This is in Cumberland County in Fayetteville, North Carolina. He was homesick, and she turned up the TV too loud. And he snapped. He lost it. And he started beating her, and he took a sock, and he choked her, and he killed her. She was 8 years old. Now, when he realized what he had done, he decided to stuff her body into a trash bag and put it in a dumpster. Then he went to the bus stop where she would have been picked up by her school bus, and he staged what was supposed to look like a kidnapping. And he scattered her things and tried to sell that idea. But under interrogation, he broke after 2 days, and he confessed to killing her. They went to the landfill, and they did find the child's body. So he was convicted for that. He was convicted and given life without parole in 1990. But there was this thing called Fair Sentencing Act, and he ended up getting out. He did 23 years, and he got out. He got out of prison, and he was released in 2013. So now you have Shannon Rippy Van Newkirk missing, and it's April the 6th, 2014. So they start investigating Bradley, and they start looking around, and they see where he can where he's been and where he has access. And that leads them to a field in Pender County. It's a place where the landscaping company, had access to. And it was hidden behind a locked gate. And, he knew how to get in there. So they went in there and they began searching. And they saw where maybe some of the earth had been turned up. So they started digging there. And that's when they found a body in a trash bag. Same kind of way that the little girl Ivy Gibson, his stepdaughter, had been disposed of, in a trash bag. So they're like, we found her. We found Shannon's body. So they take her to the medical examiner, and they're going to do an autopsy and everything. And the homicide detectives are there as protocol. And it was during this that they discovered this wasn't Shannon Rippy's body. This was Elisha Tucker. This was a completely new victim. Now, can you imagine what the police must have been thinking going through this? They were in search of a missing woman. They did their investigation. They connected to a prime suspect who had a previous murder conviction where he had killed a young child and disposed of her in a trash bag. They investigate, takes them to this field where he had access. They dig, they find a body in a trash bag. Same kind of deal as he did before. And they're just convinced, this is going to be Shannon's body. And then to find that it's a completely different woman. Wow. The shock, So, what they ended up doing is they found that this person that they found in the field buried was Elisha Tucker. She was 33 years old. She had last been seen on the 1500 block of Dawson Street in Wilmington. She had a connection through apparently drugs or what have you with Bradley. And she had been missing since August 2013. In her autopsy, it was found that she had been bludgeoned to death. Now, what they ended up doing was they took this to trial, and Bradley, on December the 5th, 2016, he was indicted for first-degree murder for killing Tucker, and they sought the death sentence. Now, they did offer him, prosecutors, a life sentence if he gave them the location of Van Newkirk's body, but he refused to do so. So on March 26, 2019, he was convicted of first-degree murder for killing Tucker. And the jury became deadlocked during the sentencing, and he got life in prison without parole.
Within 3 hours, Tucker's body was found bludgeoned and buried in a shallow grave in Hampstead 5 years ago. For Bradley, it's his third murder conviction. He's currently serving 30 years for murdering Shannon Rippy Van Newkirk, although investigators have never found her body.
James Opelton Bradley was released on parole after 23 years of serving a sentence that he had gotten life without parole for having murdered Elisha Ivy Gibson, 8 years old, his stepdaughter. He was released on February 11, 2013. It was 6 months later that Elisha Tucker went missing in August 2013. And then 8 months later, Shannon's gone. They were all three the victims of a serial killer from Wilmington, James Opelton Bradley. He is currently serving his sentence at Tabor City Correctional Institution. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, keep seeking. Bye.